Have you ever walked into your loved one's bedroom and felt something was just a little off? Maybe it's the way they've been sleeping, tossing, turning, waking up tired, even after a full night in bed. Or maybe it's the new complaints, more headaches, more anxiety, sudden forgetfulness. You chalk it up to age, right? Maybe stress, or just one of those things that happens as people get older. But what if I told you the real culprit might be right there in the room with them every single night? That comforting space, their bedroom, the place where they're supposed to rest, heal, and feel safe, could actually be doing the opposite. I know, it sounds almost unreal, but hear me out, because what I'm about to share with you is something that most people never think twice about. And the truth is, it's costing our elderly loved ones more than we realize. For those over 65, the body becomes more sensitive, more vulnerable to things that younger people can brush off. And in the bedroom, where they spend sometimes 8 to 12 hours a day, there are common items, everyday, ordinary things that give off low-level radiation or EMFs. Constantly, silently, slowly, and over time, that exposure adds up. I'm not talking about giant machines or something from a sci-fi movie. I'm talking about things like that cozy electric blanket, that digital clock glowing on the nightstand, the cordless phone sitting next to the bed for emergencies, the very mattress they lie on, even that harmless Wi-Fi extender someone set up to give them better signal. These aren't exotic threats. They're in almost every home. Maybe they're in your home right now. And the worst part, most people just don't know. Nobody talks about this in the doctor's office. Nobody warns you when you buy these items. You don't get a manual on how to protect your aging parents or grandparents from things you can't see or smell or touch. But that ends right here. Because by the time you finish watching this video, you'll know exactly which 6 common bedroom items are quietly putting your loved one's health at risk. You'll understand the why, the how, and most importantly, what you could do to fix it without disrupting their life or scaring them. We're going to break it all down, one item at a time. And when we get to number 5, you're going to realize it's something right next to most beds in America. So please, don't skip around. Don't click off early. If you're serious about keeping the people you love safe, especially in the years when their health is already fragile, stick with me. This is one of those rare moments when a little bit of information could truly make all the difference. And if you're here because you care, because you're the one that always shows up, that always checks in, that always tries to do what's right, then comment, "I'm here" below, just so I know we're walking this path together. And make sure to subscribe to Elderly Care. This is what we do. We're here to help you protect the people who once protected you. Let's get into it. Let's start with something that feels innocent, even comforting. Electric blankets. Now, if you've ever spent a winter night in a cold room, you know just how good it feels to slip under one. That quick, soothing warmth. That cozy hum that makes you think, yes, this is what comfort feels like. Margaret thought so too. She's 72, lives alone, and every night, like clockwork, she'd plug in her electric blanket before getting into bed. She said it helped her fall asleep faster, that it eased the stiffness in her knees. She'd been using it for years, but recently, something started to change. She began waking up at 3 a.m., heart racing. Her legs would tingle as if she'd been sitting cross-legged for too long. And even though she was in bed for 8 hours, she never felt truly rested. Her doctor checked her heart, her blood pressure, everything looked fine. But still, the symptoms continued. And then, by pure chance, her daughter came across an article about EMFs, electromagnetic fields, and how prolonged exposure, especially during sleep, can affect older adults in ways that don't always show up in routine tests. It turns out, electric blankets aren't just warming the body. They're surrounding it in a constant field of low-level radiation. And for someone over 65 with thinner skin, slower cellular repair, and already sensitive nerve function, that radiation can quietly chip away at their rest, their mood, even their long-term health. You see, the body does a lot of healing at night. That's when it restores tissue, balances hormones, regenerates the brain. But when it's being hit with EMFs for 8 straight hours, night after night, that process gets interrupted. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, disrupted. Nerve signals, altered. And in some cases, those strange, hard-to-pin-down symptoms, like Margaret's nerve tingling or sudden anxiety, start to creep in. But here's the thing. Most people don't know. They assume if the blanket's warm and it helps them sleep, what's the harm? But when you step back and look at the science, the long contact time, and the body's vulnerability during sleep, it's clear. Electric blankets are a hidden danger. Now, I'm not saying to toss it out in the middle of winter. I get it. We all want our loved ones to be warm. But there are safer ways. Try low EMF heating pads designed for elderly use. Or better yet, go old school. Use a hot water bottle wrapped in a towel. Add a few extra layers. Use flannel sheets. These options keep the warmth without the radiation. And Margaret? Once she switched to layered wool blankets and a microwavable heat pack, her sleep improved. The tingling stopped. And for the first time in months, she said she woke up feeling like herself again. But blankets aren't the only culprits. Because just inches from your loved one's pillow, plugged into the wall, humming all night long, there's something even worse. Let's talk about something that almost no one questions anymore. Wi-Fi. You probably use it every day. Your loved one might watch their favorite shows with it, call family on video chat, maybe even play online games with the grandkids. It's a modern convenience we've come to depend on. And in some ways, it's beautiful. Connection across generations, made possible through a simple signal. But here's where things take a turn. A caregiver, trying to help her elderly father stay more connected, moved the household Wi-Fi router directly into his bedroom. She figured he'd get better reception for his tablet, less buffering during video calls, maybe even enjoy his time online more. But what happened over the next few weeks? That's where the story gets unsettling. Her father started complaining of more frequent headaches. He was anxious during the day, restless at night. He forgot things more often. Names, dates, even what he was saying mid-sentence. They thought it was just aging, maybe early signs of dementia, maybe stress. But the truth was right there in the corner of the room, blinking, quietly, constantly. You see, Wi-Fi routers and repeaters don't just send out a signal when you're using them. They emit continuous low-level microwave radiation 24 hours a day. It's a small amount, sure, but when that signal is just a few feet from your head, night after night, especially during sleep when the brain is most sensitive, that's when things start to change. And older adults? Their brains are already more vulnerable. Their cellular repair processes are slower. Their nervous systems are more reactive. That low hum of invisible energy may not bother a teenager, but for someone over 65, it can create a kind of biological noise. One that leads to insomnia, mood swings, difficulty concentrating, or just that constant, unexplained feeling of unease. And the most dangerous part? It builds slowly, subtly, so it's easy to miss. That caregiver only realized the connection when she moved the router back into the hallway. Within a few days, her father's sleep improved. The headaches faded. His memory became sharper. It wasn't magic. It was simply removing the interference his body couldn't fight on its own. But we've been trained to believe strong signal equals better quality of life. We never stop to ask what that signal is doing to us, especially when our bodies are already trying so hard to stay balanced. So what can you do? Simple steps. First, keep the router out of the bedroom, as far away from where someone sleeps as possible. Second, set a timer. Many modern routers allow you to schedule them to shut off at night, or you can use a simple plug-in timer from the hardware store. Turn it off while you sleep. Turn it back on in the morning. It won't disrupt your routines, but it might just give your loved one's brain the quiet it needs to rest, to heal, to function the way it was meant to. And speaking of quiet, let me ask you something. What about that old clock you've had for decades? The one glowing on the nightstand? You might think it's harmless, but there's something about it you need to know. Now let's talk about something so ordinary, so familiar, that most people don't even give a second thought. The bedside alarm clock. Not your smartphone, not a fancy smart speaker, just an old-school digital alarm clock. Maybe it's been sitting there for 20 years, maybe more. Still ticking, still glowing, still waking your loved one up at 7 a.m. every morning without fail. Earl had one of those. He was proud of it, said it reminded him of simpler times. Big red numbers, loud buzzer, dependable. It sat right next to his pillow for decades. Always on, always plugged in. But over the years, Earl started dealing with migraines. Not every day, but often enough to notice. His sleep got patchy too. He'd wake up at strange hours. He was more irritable, sometimes foggy in the mornings. The kind of changes that sneak up on you and start to feel like just another part of getting older. Then, during a routine checkup, his doctor, one of the few who actually looked beyond the basics, asked about his sleep environment. And when Earl mentioned the old clock by his bed, the doctor paused. "Try removing it," he said. "Just see what happens." Earl didn't think it would do anything. It's just a clock, right? But here's the truth. Many older digital alarm clocks, especially the plug-in kind made before newer safety standards, emit low-frequency electromagnetic fields. Not in huge bursts, just a constant, steady trickle. The problem isn't the amount, it's the distance. Most people keep their clock right next to their head, a foot away, sometimes even closer. And night after night, year after year, that radiation pulses just inches from the brain. And for someone over 65, someone whose brain is already more vulnerable to disruption, that can quietly affect sleep rhythms, hormone levels, even cognitive clarity. We tend to think it's so small, it can't matter. But that thinking misses the bigger picture. This isn't about how much radiation one thing gives off. It's about how long and how close. Earl didn't expect much when he unplugged his clock. But within a week, his migraine softened. He started sleeping more deeply. He felt calmer in the mornings. He didn't believe it at first until the pattern stuck. And that clock? It got moved across the room. Now, I'm not saying your loved one needs to give up knowing the time. We all need a little structure. But if there's a bright digital clock glowing beside their bed, consider this. Switch to a battery-powered analog clock. No WSGen. No constant light in the room. No unnecessary signals interfering with sleep. Just quiet timekeeping the way it used to be. Because sometimes the smallest change, the quietest fix, has the biggest impact. And not all the threats in the bedroom come from electronic gadgets. Some of them are built right into the furniture itself, hidden in plain sight, and they're doing more than just holding up the mattress. Let's look a little deeper now, beneath the sheets, beneath the comforters. Let's talk about what your loved one is actually sleeping on. The structure, the foundation, the bed frame, the mattress. Diane was 69 when she stumbled across a forum online. People discussing how their metal bed frames might be affecting their sleep. She was skeptical at first. It sounded like another wellness trend, but she had nothing to lose. For years, she'd been struggling with restless legs, strange buzzing sensations in her calves, and nights spent flipping from side to side, trying to find rest that never really came. So she tried it. She swapped out her metal bed frame for a wooden one, got rid of her old spring mattress, and replaced it with a natural, foam-based option. And within weeks, the difference was almost hard to believe. Her legs stopped twitching. Her body felt calmer. Her sleep became steadier. Not perfect, but better. Real rest, after years of chasing it. Why? Because most people don't realize that metal bed frames and spring mattresses don't just sit there. They interact with the environment. Metal, by its very nature, conducts electricity. And when it's used in large structures, like a bed frame or the coils in a mattress, it can actually amplify the electromagnetic fields already present in the room, especially in cities where EMFs are everywhere. Cell towers, power lines, Wi-Fi, smart meters. Your bedroom might seem quiet, but to a metal bed frame, it's alive with signal. And when your body, already tired, already vulnerable, lies on that metal every night, you're not just sleeping. You're soaking in a subtle, invisible current. It's not enough to electrocute, not enough to feel, but enough to disturb the body's delicate systems. Sleep isn't just unconsciousness. It's when your body repairs itself, when cells regenerate, when inflammation goes down. And if that process is disrupted, night after night, it starts to show up. In fatigue, in pain, in memory, in mood. But here's the thing. We've been told for decades that metal bed frames and spring mattresses are standard, durable, affordable, common, so we don't question them. We don't stop to ask whether what's normal is actually what's safe. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out tomorrow and buy a brand new bed, But if your loved one is struggling with sleep, anxiety, or any odd symptoms that doctors can't quite explain, take a closer look at what they're sleeping on. Consider switching to a solid wood bed frame. Something grounded, natural, neutral. And if you can, look into a mattress that doesn't use inner springs. There are plenty of options now. Organic latex, natural memory foam, even cotton-filled. They don't amplify EMFs. They don't act like antennas. They just support the body the way a bed is supposed to. Because sometimes the foundation matters more than we think. And speaking of what's closest to the body, this next item might be the most overlooked of all. It sits right next to the bed, every night, always within arm's reach, always on, and it never stops emitting. Let's talk about that item on the nightstand, the one meant for safety, for connection, for peace of mind in case of an emergency. The cordless phone. James, 74, kept his right there, always within reach. He lived alone, and like so many people his age, the idea of being able to call for help, anytime, any reason, made him feel secure, especially late at night. The phone sat on its charging dock, always ready, always on. But what James didn't know is that even when it's not ringing, even when it's not in use, that phone never stops transmitting. Cordless phones, especially the common DCT models, emit bursts of microwave radiation all the time. Not just when you're on a call, not just when it rings, but constantly, in pulses, every few milliseconds, day and night. And when it's sitting just a few inches from your bed, from your head, that radiation goes straight into your body while you sleep. No breaks, no pauses, no off switch unless you physically unplug the base. James didn't connect the dots at first. He was having trouble falling asleep. His heart would race at night. He felt edgy in the mornings, like he hadn't rested at all. His doctor blamed age, stress, a little anxiety. But deep down, he knew something was off. It wasn't until his granddaughter mentioned that cordless phones emit EMFs that he even thought to question it. He unplugged the dock, put the phone in the living room. And within a few nights, things started to shift. He fell asleep faster, woke up with a clearer mind. That strange pressure in his chest eased. The irony? People think these phones are safer than cell phones. Less complicated, less dangerous. But in reality, they're often worse because they emit radiation all day, all night, even when they're just sitting there quietly charging. And that's the trap, isn't it? We use them to feel safe, to stay prepared, to protect our independence or the independence of someone we love. But we never ask whether they might be quietly eroding that very sense of safety from within. So here's what you can do. If you truly need a bedside phone, use a corded landline. No radiation, no pulses, just a simple, reliable connection. Or, if you must use a cordless one, keep the dock far from the bed, across the room, or in another part of the house. Let the phone charge during the day. At night, give the body a chance to rest without that constant, invisible interference. Because when it comes to healing, especially for the elderly, silence isn't just golden. It's necessary. And now, we come to the final item, the most overlooked, the one you'd never expect. It's not plugged in. It doesn't beep. It doesn't glow. But it could be exposing your loved one to something just as dangerous. Every single night, let's take a look at something that's become incredibly popular in recent years. Weighted blankets. They're everywhere now, advertised as soothing, calming, perfect for anxiety, insomnia, or just a good night's rest. And for many people, they can help. But here's the part no one talks about. Not all weighted blankets are created equal. Sylvia, 67, was given one by her daughter. It was meant to help her relax, to calm her nerves in the evenings. At first, she loved the heavy comfort. It felt like a hug, she said. But then something strange happened. She started waking up in pools of sweat. She felt drained, sluggish during the day, like she hadn't slept at all. She thought maybe it was hormones, or her thyroid, maybe stress. But the truth was wrapped around her every single night. Many inexpensive weighted blankets are filled with recycled plastic beads. Others are packed with synthetic fillers that may contain volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. These substances can slowly release toxic gases, especially when warmed by body heat under layers of fabric. They're not loud, they don't smell, But over time, that low-level exposure can quietly tax the body, especially in older adults where detox pathways are slower, where the skin is thinner, where lungs and immune systems aren't quite as strong as they used to be. And that weight? It's not always a good thing. People often think more weight means more comfort. But for seniors, that extra pressure can strain the chest, restrict movement, overheat the body, and instead of soothing, it stresses, gently, silently, night after night. The truth is, not all weighted blankets are harmful. But if you're not careful, what seems like a source of comfort might actually become a slow, hidden burden. So what should you look for? Choose a blanket made from organic cotton or bamboo. Make sure the inner fill is non-toxic glass beads, certified for low emissions and chemical safety. Look for brands that disclose their materials. Transparency is a good sign. And always consider the weight. For elderly users, lighter is often better. Enough to soothe, but not to press. Sylvia made the switch to a breathable, organic blanket. Lighter weight, no plastic, and after just a few nights, the night sweat stopped. Her fatigue lifted. She said it felt like her body could finally breathe again. It wasn't about giving up comfort. It was about making sure the comfort didn't come with a hidden cost. And now that you know these 6 hidden dangers, now that you've seen what might be quietly affecting your loved one every night, let's pause, take a breath, and talk about what this all really means. Not just scientifically, but emotionally. It's hard, isn't it, to realize that the things we surround our loved ones with, the items we chose for comfort, for safety, for routine, might be quietly making things worse. That electric blanket they've used for years, that glowing clock they keep beside their pillow, the cozy weighted blanket you gifted them because you just wanted them to feel a little less anxious. They were all chosen with love, with the best intentions. And yet, here we are, because it's not always the loud dangers that do the most harm. Sometimes it's the silent ones, the invisible ones, the ones we never knew to question. And that's the part that really gets to the heart, isn't it? That these quiet little threats don't come with warnings. They don't show up with flashing lights or alarms. They slip in softly, through disrupted sleep, through growing fatigue, through a slow, almost imperceptible decline in clarity, energy, and peace. It's heartbreaking, because we're trying so hard. You're trying so hard to care for them, to keep them safe, to hold the pieces of their well-being together with whatever you can. But here's the beautiful truth. You're not powerless. You're not at the mercy of these things. You're aware now. You've pulled back the curtain. You've given yourself the gift of knowledge, and with that comes the quiet, steady strength of choice. And no, you don't have to overhaul everything. You don't need to panic, because change, real change, starts with something small. Move the phone across the room. Swap that weighted blanket for one that breathes. Unplug the router at night. Take a look under the bed and rethink that old frame. Each of these choices, tiny on their own, become a kind of invisible shield, a layer of protection, a sign of your love, not just spoken, but lived. Because caring for someone in their later years, it's not just about medication and doctor visits. It's about creating an environment where their body can rest, their mind can breathe, and their spirit can feel at ease. And you're doing that. With every moment you spend learning, adjusting, protecting, you're giving them something beyond comfort. You're giving them dignity, safety, a little more time, a little more peace. And that's not just powerful, that's sacred. So take a breath. You've come far already, and this is just the beginning. Let's talk now about where to go from here, what you can do next, and how your story, your choices, can become a light for others. Let's take a moment to pull everything together. We've covered a lot today, and maybe some of it surprised you. Maybe some of it felt personal. To quickly recap, we looked at 6 bedroom items that might be doing more harm than good for someone over 65, without anyone even realizing it. Electric blankets, Wi-Fi routers, old digital alarm clocks, metal bed frames, and spring mattresses, cordless phones, and certain weighted blankets made with questionable materials. Each of these can emit low-level radiation or toxins, disrupt the body's natural rhythms, or quietly wear down the health of someone who's already more vulnerable. But now you know, and knowing changes everything. So let me ask you, Which one surprised you the most? Or, be honest, is there one of these sitting in your bedroom right now? Drop in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're noticing, what changes you're thinking of making, or even just what this brought up for you emotionally. We're not just here to give information. We're building a space for conversation, for support, for real care. And if this video spoke to you, if it helped you see something you hadn't before, or gave you the tools to better protect someone you love, consider subscribing to Elderly Care. This is what we do. Week after week, we dive into the little things that make a big difference to keep our elders safe, healthy, and above all, respected, because they deserve that. And so do you. Thank you, truly, for being here, for taking the time, for caring deeply enough to learn, to question, to grow. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.